be there all the time, 8 hours a day. And there was also an assumption that there was somebody else at home, a wife, who's going to take care of the rest of your life. The entire workplace has changed since then, not just the introduction of women into work, but now we're in a digital society. We're in a global workforce where we are working with people across time zones. We're working virtually. And we're in a service economy. And yet we are still really attached to this very, very old system of what the workplace looked like. And I really, when I started looking at this, I started with the simple question, which is if you were going to start the workplace from scratch today, what would it look like? Would it look like 5 days a week, 40 hours a week? I don't think so. I don't think it would look anything like that. And so what COVID has done with this suddenly shutting down the economy in many, many ways, sending office workers home to work remotely, what it did is it provided this break that allowed people to sort of reassess how they work, the kind of work they do, the tempo of the work week. And it's given all of us an opportunity to really think about, can we reinvent the workforce in a way that makes much more sense for today?
But there are people, as you know, CEOs of banks, for example, who say, look, a lot of the work that happens is the accidental encounters, the teamwork, and you've got to be in the same place at the same time. The CEOs of JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley and such say if you want New York wages, you've got to work at the New York office. What are they trying to get at, and are they right?
I am a believer that there's a lot of these sort of incidental meetings that really are very, very important. However, that said, there's a lot of that can be done. Some of it can be done remotely, but also you can have sort of a hybrid model. And I think that when you talk to people, when you talk to workers, the vast, vast majority of people would prefer a hybrid model where they are sometimes in the workplace, but sometimes being able to work at home. I do think there's a danger in the executives who are saying you have to have FaceTime. I think that is a very, very outdated way of thinking about things.
How do you deal with the class divide element of this? A CEO, a friend of mine, said to me about those of us who do think there will be greater a hybrid model. He said to me, look, the senior management loves this idea. They all have large houses, large suburban houses with home offices. But the younger kids, they don't have that. They're living 4 or 5 to an apartment. They do want to come back to the office. So is there a divide here?
There's a couple of ways this could play out. One might be that the people who are the younger people want to come in because they want to get away from their roommates and their studio apartments, and the older people who live in the suburbs and have a commute want to stay at home and work remotely, in which case you don't get the mentoring that you need. You don't get the transmission of the company culture, which is so, so important. There's another way this class system could work out that could be potentially even more damaging, and that would be if the people who want to hustle are in and they are favored over those who are remote. And this, I think, is perhaps a bigger issue. If you have a situation, we know that women, particularly working mothers of young children, and we know that people of color are more likely to say that they prefer remote working. If you have the people on the premises being favored, getting the promotions, getting the raises, getting the opportunities, whereas those who are remote do not, you have a class system that exacerbates what we already know are the issues that these marginalized groups are already facing. And so you could actually double down on the issues faced by women, faced by people of color, faced by your marginalized communities. And that is something that's a real danger that we've got to keep our eyes open for.
So it has to be intelligently designed, and presumably some piece of this will be that offices will become a little bit more like WeWork, that model of the idea that you kind of come in and out, plug in and leave, becomes the new model?
I think what might be more likely to happen could be a situation where there are more satellite offices. REI, the apparel retailer, did something really interesting where they gave up their headquarters building in favor of creating satellite offices so that people could go to work, but go to work in a smaller office that would be closer to their home. So you are surrounded by colleagues, which is helpful, right? But at the same time, you are not having to make that long commute into the center of the city. One of the big changes that we might see, I think, would be more companies adopting a 4-day work week. This, I think, could be quite revolutionary. And I do think, when we talk about starting the office and the work week from scratch, I believe that is something where we might have landed. There's been some experiments here. Iceland, over 4 years, 2015 to 19, they just recently released the results of their experiment with a 4-day work week. They found that productivity remained constant or increased, and that employees loved it. It was great for their mental health. They reported less burnout. They reported better balance in their work and lives. So I think there's a real lesson there.
Joanne Lippman, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Fareed. Great to be here.
From back to work to back to school, how can all schools from nursery to graduate change the way they educate our kids post-pandemic? I'll be back with the former U.S. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, in a moment.
Growing business.
So far, we've had 0 viewers today, so hello to the replay viewers. These are my migraine glasses.
So you can stop at nothing for your customers.
This is a KN95 mask, which I'm wearing because I'm having trouble with my allergies and my sinusitis.
Your work from home setup?
Mommy, David isn't playing fair again.
No, it's the confidence of someone who knows their rates before talking to a dealer. With
And
finance in advance.
Woof Woof, do you want to tell the people anything? Woof Woof says Rosh Hashanah starts tomorrow, Lashana Tova. Okay, so tomorrow night. Do we have any honey, Woof? Yes, we do. Do we have any apples? No. Apples and honey for a sweet new year. Jewish New Year. Hebrew lunar calendar starts tomorrow night. Hello to the viewer. Woof Woof says hi. We're doing the 10 minutes or more a day challenge. If Lisa can do it, I can do it, although the 10-minute rule is mine. And so we're going to stay on for 2 more minutes unless someone says something. Like, hello, how's your day going? How do you plan to address all of these issues that came up during the pandemic? I think the closing ceremonies of the Paralympics are today, the replay, but I have not checked, and I think that there's figure skating on Junior Grand Prix. There's also the competition, and there's also the one in Florida, like the challenge skate in Florida. I'll look. Right now I'm watching Fareed Zakaria, what the world's going to look like after the pandemic that may never end. Like, how do you go on with your life if the pandemic doesn't end? That's what he's talking about. All right. I really enjoyed waking up this morning with stomach pain and the sinus issue. So I'm not sure that the coffee and the decongestant have helped my stomach, but they're hopefully helping the sinus issue. Maybe I'll make some soup. Maybe I'll reheat my leftovers and put some bone broth in there. Oh, and it's obviously Labor Day weekend.
If you skip the rinse with Finish Quantum, you save up to 20 gallons of water each time. Finish Quantum with active.
All right, it's 10 minutes. Have a nice day. Bye. Why is it saying poor reception?